meeting with me today. Really appreciate that. Basically, maybe 15 or 20 minutes. I got about 7 questions.
Okay.
If there's anything you don't want to answer, just tell me you don't want to answer.
Okay.
It's fine with me. So if we can start with, tell me a little bit about Ryan's House for Youth.
Okay. So Ryan's House for Youth was started in 2009. We got our 501c3 in 2010. We started out with the desire to build a youth shelter for kids under the age of 18. And when that started looking like a much longer process than we had thought it would be, we started an outreach van program. And so we had a van and we stuffed it full of supplies, and I had soup in a crock pot plugged into the lighter in the van, and I would hand out soup and clothing and toiletries and sleeping bags and coats and all of the things that kids need that were sleeping outside, and went to all 3 school districts once a week and sat in the van after school for about 2.5 hours and waited for kids to come. And realized that that was not the best environment to have conversation with kids. So we moved those conversations into the schools, meeting with teachers and school counselors and homeless liaisons and the students, because we still were working out of my house at the time. And from there it grew into a host family program where we've had 23 hosted students that have moved on to graduation and successful housing. We currently have 3 in host homes right now, which has been great. And we've had 2 brand new babies that have been born into host homes. Our recent one was only a month ago. We've had 2 kids adopted after they turned 18 to new families out of their host home program. And we've had 15 kids out of the 23, 24 kids graduate from high school that were eligible. So 100% graduation rate, which we're really proud of.
That's incredible.
And now we are in the process of trying to finalize the purchase of the Countryside Inn Motel, where we will move our drop-in center, which we opened last year in this location. We will move that to the Countryside Inn Motel, as well as offer transitional housing for 18 to 24-year-olds.
Wow, that's really, really cool.
Oh, plus we're also working on legislation for our host family programs so that there can be host family programs across the state.
Right. And what would you say are some unique features about Ryan's House for Youth?
The unique features about Ryan's House is we are open with the kids, transparent with the kids. We share, we have them share. It's all based on relationship. It's all based on trust and respect. The kids know we'll be real with them, so they're real with us. We are their family that they may not have had. We are the ones that step up in the middle of the night when they need something. We run 24/7. We have 2 staff members that are on call 24/7, which makes us another unique feature of our organization. The kids know we love them and care about them, and that's a service that is not usually found in a program like ours.
Right, so typically in a program, I mean, even the foster care system, the child ages out at age 18,
right,
and there's no one for them to call or talk to normally after that. So
right,
with this experience, they end up having lifetime people that they can turn to even after they age out of the program. Then.
Right, and they don't age out of the program until 25.
Right. Okay, what are some of the challenges with the program?
The challenges are living on an island. That is the biggest one. Transportation doesn't run on Saturdays and Sundays. It's problematic that there aren't things for kids to do. It is problematic that jobs and services are so far apart. It is a problem that there are very few services here on the island. Mental health, drug and alcohol supports are very minor. So a lot of our trips are over to town. We took 2 kids over to town today, one for intake for a medical issue, and the other one was to the Social Security office. So when you have limited resources here, we spend a lot of money on ferry boat rides and transportation costs.
Okay. Would you say the need for the services your Ryan's House provides has increased or decreased since you guys started?
Increased. 3 times, 4 times over. It has, kids know that we will help them get their ID. Kids know that we'll take them over to town to get their Social Security cards. They know that we will take them to counseling. They know that we'll sit with them through whatever it is that they need to go through, and that is unique. And so when kids tell other kids that those features are here, we end up just seeing an influx of participants. Our drop-in center went from 4 kids a day to 20 kids a day, and that in itself has been a huge testament to not only what we do here, but the need.
Right. So whereas a youth were to go to counseling and realize maybe specific areas they'd like to work on in their lives, and the counselor would make these goals with them, but there's no real help getting to those goals. It's,
right.
You have to do this, this, and this, and they leave overwhelmed thinking, okay, well, I have no way to do any of this. Right. So you guys, that's when you guys can step in and say, okay, well, we can help you get these needs met then.
So we had a young man came in, and he needed his food handler's card. And he walked in and he said, "Can you help me with my food handler's card?" And so we set him up with a computer and sat with him while he did his food handler's card, and paid for the food handler's card, and fed him some lunch. And then he sat down and he started to cry. And he said, "It has taken me 6 months to try and get this food handler's card, and you did it in 20 minutes. I don't know where I would be without having come in here." And that's why we do what we do, because it is overwhelming for kids. It is extremely hard for them to fill out the easiest forms at the DSHS office for a food stamp card. But if you sit there with them and you ask them the questions and they just answer the questions, it doesn't seem so overwhelming. It doesn't seem so mountainous of an issue to try and obtain what it is that they need. They're not used to those forms. They're not used to dealing with people that they don't know. So giving up is the easiest option. And we just help them through that. They're the ones that do all the work. We just hold their hand through it.
Right. What kind of training is needed to provide services? What kind of training do you guys?
So we have our 2 case managers have backgrounds in counseling and actually are past trained and educated youth ministers. So a lot of those skills have already been taught before we had our positions. We have volunteers that come in, and we train those volunteers through de-escalation. What happens if a kid gets upset because someone took their cookie, or what does that mean when someone decides to just take that cookie and be upset? It usually means that there's more to the situation. It's a trigger. It's not just about the cookie.
Upset, right?
Yeah, and so we train all of our volunteers in all of those things: trauma-informed care, de-escalation practices, mental health first aid. Those are the things that we train our volunteers, so when they are working with the kids, they completely understand what these kids are about and how to best handle certain situations. We always have those emergency, forms and plans, and and we do have volunteers that haven't gone through all of the training. Those are the ones that work at the front desk and answer the phones, that kind of thing. But for the most part, almost everyone that works in the drop-in center is trained in those different topics so that they feel comfortable being here with our kids.
Right, because they are from all different aspects, ways of life, different, I don't really want to call them issues, but
Yeah.
that's kind of what they are.
They are.
Can you talk about some of that? Like what are some of the normal situations that you see?
So we have a lot of kids that have separation anxiety or bipolar disorders or schizophrenia. We have a lot of kids that are dealing with abandonment issues. We have kids that have been neglected and have PTSD. We see a wide range of mental health needs as well as social skill needs. A lot of our kids have had to fend for themselves, so they don't know how to relax. Teaching some of those kind of skills, stress relievers. It's a wide variety, but that's really what we see our biggest issues being. And trust. Trust is probably the hardest thing for these kids to overcome. Adults have let them down over and over again. Adults have left them to fend for themselves. Adults have broken promises, and trying to repair their idea of what an adult can be in their life is what we probably have the most issue about, is earning that trust with those kids and allowing them to feel like they can share with us because we won't let them down.
Right. I think the last question I have would be, what advice would you give to my fellow classmates who may be interested in working with homeless youth or at-risk teens?
First of all, be honest with them. Be open and honest with them. They can smell BS a mile away, and if they think you're giving them a line or you're not being real with them, they won't open up and trust you. Relationship is really important. Not inappropriate relationship, but showing that you care and you have concern for them, that you generally are worried about them, those kind of things. You need to be able to allow yourself to be in that kind of a relationship with them so that they feel that they're safe. The other thing is making sure you really understand trauma-informed care, that you understand what these kids are going through and what triggers them. Every kid has different triggers, and the longer that you know these kids, the more you'll be able to read their faces when you can see something coming on. This morning I was working with a young lady that I've worked with off and on with for about 2.5 years. And she has made huge strides, and she's had slide backs, and she's made huge strides again, and then she's made slide backs. But she was talking about something this morning, and you could just see in her face that she was starting to get anxious, and she was starting to get upset, and then all of a sudden she was starting to hyperventilate. And I could tell before she even got to that point of hyperventilating that we needed to shut down that conversation, and we needed to reframe that and come at it at a different angle. And that's kind of the thing, is that you have to be flexible with teens. You can't assume with a teen. You can't expect them to be honest with you right away. Teenagers are complex in themselves. But if you're working with a homeless teen, a teen that's dealt with trauma, a teen that's got PTSD, there are so many other levels that you need to deal with. And the basic one is finding trust first and allowing them to feel like they're being heard. But they're the most rewarding group of people to work with. And they are so thankful when something good has happened to them.
When things start to fall into place, then you can see the appreciation.
Oh,
them,
definitely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for answering my questions.
No problem.
Is there anything else you wanted to add, or?
No, I think that covered a lot of it. Yeah.